everyone, thanks so much for tuning into Sims Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, today we're going to be reviewing The Moss. Once again, huge thank you to the publisher for sending me a copy of this book. I have mixed feelings about this book. It's not to say I didn't like it. I liked it. Just not enough for me to keep my arc. Usually if I love a book, I'll keep the arc. And it'll just go in my library. But if I don't, I usually give it to either my book club or my friend's book club. You know, I gift the books away. I was just not feeling it with this book. I wanted to like it much more than I did. And I think the main problem for me is the characterization. So you have Emma. It starts with her in California. So she kind of sees ghosts. The point is she lives in a haunted house. So her house, you know, not in the bog. I forgot. I think it's in like, it's somewhere, I want to say like near Portland and that area, because it's not too far from, you know, San Francisco. But I think, I can't remember, and I didn't write it down in my notes because it didn't seem like that much of an important detail to me. But she flies back home, and her home is at the edge of like a marsh, right? A bog that everyone in the town calls the Moss. It has its own nickname, right? So her mother, when she was a kid, went missing, went into the Moss and just disappeared. No body, no nothing. A year before the events of the book, her sister also went into the Moss. I was going to combine the Moss and Mog. So she's very much detached, right? She's a very detached person. And it's understandable why she is detached. However, it makes it hard to connect to her as just a reader to a book. Or to a character, rather. It was really hard to connect to her. And I liked how the story was broken up. You have before mom, as in after mom disappeared. And they're not linear. You know, they kind of go like that, in and out, kind of. But it works. You know, the non-linear, you have your main storyline, which is linear. And then all those before mom, before Eve, after Eve. Segments, they work in a way to create a little bit more intrigue, a little bit more mystery, and highlights the dynamic between Emma and her sister. And in those scenes, those are the parts where she is more emotionally vulnerable, where you aren't able to connect to her as a reader. But for the most part, it's hard. You know, it's hard to connect to her. The only times I was able to connect to her as a character was when she went into the Moss, and near the end, to look for her sister and challenge the Sedge Man, as they call him. And when those small little moments where she's with Jordan, the boy who's had a crush on her for forever, who she turns out she likes, you know, she likes him. I think because those scenes are so emotionally driven, that's where you get to have that connection with her as a character. But for the most part, I couldn't connect to her because for 90% of the novel, she is very detached. She is very emotionally closed off. And even though you understand why, it does create this sort of barrier between you and her, in my personal opinion. My other hindrance with why I didn't love the novel was, well, I wanted more history. So when it comes to haunted houses, I love in stories when they investigate, why is this house haunted? Like, what is the history of this house? Did any other people go missing? And you do find an instance of when one person did go missing, and then they were found 3 weeks later, right? It happened once. It's kind of like a footnote, and it's one chapter, and that's about it. That's the only history. I wanted a little bit more instances of seeing her mother, kind of like House on a Haunted Hill, the Netflix show, how you get to see that slow decline of the mom. And then at the end it's revealed like, oh yeah, the mom's, you know, the reason why they all had to finally leave the house, in a kind of sort of way. But I wanted something similar to that, where we got to see more of a slow decline of her mother. And we didn't really get to see a whole lot of that. There are really small instances in the before mom, but I wanted something from the father's point of view, you know? I wanted a little bit more history, a little bit more depth into that, well, the haunting. That's what I wanted. I wanted more of the haunting itself. I wanted a little bit more history in the haunting, a little bit more information on Sybil and the Sedge Man. Because, like, okay, he killed his daughter because he thought she was a witch. But what other... I wanted to see, like, a full memory play out, not just a scene of him drowning her. I wanted to see a full understanding of their relationship. But you don't get to see that, unfortunately. And that's where I wanted more from you. I wanted more of the hauntings. I wanted the book to make my skin crawl. And I wanted, you know, to get goosebumps. And I just didn't, you know? So, I liked the story. It just didn't deliver the way I wanted it to deliver. You know, I wanted a deeper emotional connection to that characterization, and if I had had that, maybe the story would have been scarier for me. I wanted a little bit more of the haunting, that history, and I feel like if I had had that, I also, again, the story would have been a little bit more chilling to the bone. But as it is, it's, you know, just kind of a ghost story. A really good one is Summer's Edge, if you haven't read that one. Ooh, that one's just one of my top recommendations if you want like a haunted house. That one's so good. Love that book. Love that book. But this one, you know, I wanted to feel the way I felt for Summer's Edge about this book, and I didn't. You know, my expectations just weren't met. But once again, thank you to the publisher for sending me an arc of this book. On that note, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your book loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.